introduce, however, I don't think we have to introduce, but to introduce Judit Niran Judit, who is a musicologist, and Ágnes, who is a very famous philosopher.
I will introduce Judit, who teaches at the Bar-Ilan University in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and she teaches in the music department. And this book, it is not only about music, but it is essentially about the kind of music. And the title of the book is, as you signs on the water, and it is a symbolic title. You will explain us what the symbolism of this title is, because I'm very curious. I can guess it, but I don't know it exactly. So I will ask you about it. Now you should know that in Hungary, we are somehow always influenced by the research of folkmusic of Kodály and later Bartók. And Judit was also, in a way, educated in this tradition. And as Kodály and Bartók discovered traditional Hungarian folk song, which have nothing to do with the so-called Hungarian song, Magyar note, absolutely nothing, which was original, which the peasants really were singing, especially in Transylvania, and even the young people were not singing that anymore. They asked the old people, especially the old women, to give an idea about this kind of songs, and they recorded it. Now, Judit did something similar on another level. She discovered that there's a kind of Jewish, I would not say liturgic music, because there is no liturgy in Judaism. And I cannot say it's a church music, because there are no churches in Judaism. But there is a kind of traditional music, which people, especially men, were singing in synagogues. They were singing it since early childhood. They never learned it. They only knew how they should sing. A tradition which was dying out, because only very few people existed anymore on the Hungarian territory who since their childhood on were practicing this kind of songs together with, you call davenol. I don't know what you, because I was in synagogue in America, never heard of davenol, but you know what it means. The davenol, to love davenol, is a kind of operatic thing. Yeah? That is, in a way, you sing something which is not a song. You speak in the language of music. This, what you call davenol, is basically a kind of a prayer. It's a kind of prayer, maybe private prayer, even if it's done collectively. But this kind of davenol, which is not typical in modern Europe anymore, was perhaps typical in ancient Greece. Because in the ancient Greek dramas, they were sung, they were not spoken. So there was a kind of davenol in how you speak the language of tragedy. And even in tragedy classic, in the old ways, they were not really speaking as everyday persons were speaking. They were somehow singing the language. Now, in traditional Judaism, and it is presented in your work, in traditional Judaism, which I repeat, no more practiced by the old persons who came from traditional Orthodox, basically Orthodox Jewish families, and they did it from childhood onwards. They could not give a report while they do it. They could not describe, few of them could, but mostly they could not describe what they are doing. They were just doing it. And the same Jewish song which we all know, Kolide or whatever, can be sung entirely different ways. And these old people knew how different ways the same Jewish prayer, which normally we sing, how they sing these prayers. And you went to this old man who were very reluctant to answer your questions. She was suspect. She was a young woman. and she was supposed to be a communist. They were totally stranger to this communist, was a strange religion for them, and they did not like to talk to her. So she had to persuade them that it is important for her what they are doing, that she is not doing it just out of curiosity, but because she is convinced that what they are singing, what they are doing, how they are davening is an important expression of a religious tradition and also an important expression of their own belief, because the two things are in a way fused together, according to your book. That is, if you repeat what your parents and grandparents were singing, repeat it in a way, but not always in the same way. There are always changes in these liturgical songs. Every person that's important in this book, they add their own personality into it. That is, the personality itself changes somehow the melody, modifies the melody. There is always a possibility for the individuality to express himself in a song which is traditional, in a prayer which is traditional, which everyone knows, everyone was singing, but still modifying it, still making a personal addition to it, to live in a way a mark of the personality on it, a signature of the personality on it. So finally, you speak at least about 5 different kind of persons, and they are all very interesting. You must know, they lived in dire poverty. Most of them were very poor. They had no daily living room to conduct a conversation. In a small place, which was a bedroom and a living room, and I don't know, maybe a kitchen together. In this small place, they were singing to Judy after they were convinced that it makes sense, that she's not just curious, but for her, what they were doing is really important. And she wants to preserve it for posterity. Because these people were absolutely convinced that their kind of understanding Jewish liturgic music and singing is at the way of disappear. It's going to disappear. They have no future. At least in Hungary they have no future. And if the present was very difficult, you should know that it was a Kada system where they were not singing official synagogues. They were singing in little places, maybe in a little apartment, little flat, a little room, where there was a minyan, of course, was always there. There were always 10 men who participated in the service, and they were keen on singing the old songs for just 10 men or 12 men in small rooms, and in order to keep up a tradition, which was obviously dying out. So you should not imagine these persons singing Dohány utca, a big temple, or not even the Csák utca temple, which were not Orthodox anyway. They were neolog synagogues, but this liturgy was strictly Orthodox, although some of the melodies are everywhere in all Jewish services, and I heard them many times also in Europe, in conservative synagogues, not only in Orthodox synagogues, but obviously did it in a different way. Unfortunately, I could not listen to the records, because I thought it would be interesting to hear. You described, of course, in a way you can guess from the description how these persons were singing. But I would have liked to have a record of their singing, to hear it really, because my ear is not so well prepared to listen, to hear something which is just in writing or in notes present. There were also notes present there. I can know the notes, I can read them, but I cannot hear it properly. So anyhow, it is a great deal. And Judith was true, in a way, to the tradition of Bartók and Kodály, because she did something for a kind of music, which is not the music of the future, but music of the past, as it is original and authentic Volksmusik. And what happens in the Orthodox synagogues was a kind of Volksmusik. But they were singing, that was Volksmusik. Their own tradition, and even if there were different kind of variations, there were all traditions. Some of these persons you mentioned here were rabbis in their own, maybe not, one of them was rabbi, one of them were rabbi. And the others were cantors, or perhaps they only played the cantor, because they were not official cantors. But someone had to sing these songs, and they knew it, and the congregation knew that they knew it. So for the congregation, they were singing these old songs, and out of pleasure to keeping the tradition, and of course of remembrance. It was also a kind of practice in remembering of communities which are no more there, communities which were together for centuries, and they were dying out for two different reasons. First, because of the Holocaust, people were disappearing, communities were disappearing, and second, because of the loss of the tradition. The tradition is going out somewhere. It gives way to new kind of, which was not bad, they were nice and good. I tell you, I was in Conservative Synagogue in New York, enjoyed very much the service, but that's a different thing. And this different thing is here. It hasn't died out, and we thank Julie that they are with us, and we can hear them if you have the records of them. I will ask it immediately. So I can hear them, and we have an idea, an impression about the tradition, about the past. So many things are nowadays spoken about cultural memory. When we speak about cultural memory, we normally speak about books which carry cultural memory, or legends which carry cultural memory. And here is music. Music which carries cultural memory. Music in the way it was sung in their time. It is the carrier of a cultural memory. And this is why it's so important to listen to this music again, because we can become the witnesses of what existed, what kept a community together, and what does not exist anymore. So now I want to ask you questions, because I'm duty bound to ask her questions. I like the book very much, and I will recommend you to read the book, because I cannot, of course, tell everything what is in the book, particularly because I do not really read the notes. And now my first question is, do you have the records? And can you present the records when you make from these songs?
I cannot give now a number.
Yes, of course, I have the records. I cannot give now a number, but I don't know, 100 hours. I don't know. I really have lot of recordings. Even the list of recordings goes pages and pages and pages and pages. My collection. All right. Well, I really have to say that I'm not the only one who collected.
But I know only your book.
I'm really not the only one. There is a large archive in Israel, in Jerusalem, which is called the Phonotheca, and they have an enormous collection of all kinds of Jewish music, liturgical music, many different kinds of music, and there are collections elsewhere too. There are many different collections, but that is probably the biggest, and I donated my archive, a copy of my archive went to that so-called Phonotheca, the National Sound Archive. I think that's
so give this Phonotheca your record.
All of my recordings from the 70s. We did the digitalization sometime in around 2000. So what I recorded after 2000 is not there. Also, I had many interviews in Hungarian. And they did not want the interviews in Hungarian, which is a big mistake. So the interviews in Hungarian are not digitized. But some of them are digitized.
Which are the interviews now?
In Hungarian.
It's Hungarian,
it's
not translated.
Well, I translated some of them, but we transcribed all of them.
Yeah.
All of them are transcribed. Anyway, we digitized the interviews too, but the Phonotheca wanted only the musical part. And there is a copy also here at the sound archive of the, how it's called, Institute for Musicology. Not everything, but say 80% of what I collected can be found, and it's in public libraries. Now, what was unique about my work, which actually I didn't know that it was unique when I did it. I had no idea that I did unique things because I had no idea what others did. In those days you couldn't go to Jerusalem to study in the sound archive. I mean, in the 70s you couldn't go to Israel
But
at all.
you could not do it with these very persons you did.
Well, but I'm not talking about that, but I'm even talking about consulting other material and how other researchers did this work. I had absolutely no idea what others did because it was totally inaccessible here. So the uniqueness of this collection is that I realized, all right, I have to interrupt myself. I have to explain something because otherwise it's impossible to understand. Basically, the Jewish service, I focused on the music of the service, all right, what happens in the synagogue. So basically, the Jewish service is the reading of a body of text. I put this up because I like to have a prayer book on the table when I'm talking about this.
I remember Avenu Malkeinu. Avenu Malkeinu was singing many times in the Yom Kippur at least 5 times. And
it comes Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, and other than
at least 5 times.
Yes.
But you recorded them that they sing it always differently.
Okay, I come back to that. Let me finish this first part. So basically, you have a large body of text. I don't know. I could open the morning prayer. I'm not seeing it. It's too small. I would need my glasses. But it's probably more than that. Probably that much text is more or less the morning prayer. So people are reading this text, but they are reading it in music. And it's a continuous flow of music that I write a lot about, the effect, the atmosphere of this continuous flow, which is Daven, and which we may come back to. And in this flow, you have sometimes high points. So there is a song, or there is something very important. The highest point of the service, actually, of every service, is silence. Okay, when you come to the most important prayer...
That's the private prayer, the silence.
Well, when you come to what's called Amidah or Shemone Esrei or Tfilah par excellence, so there is a part of the text. There are 2 main pillars of every Jewish service, and that is never missing. That's a long prayer. When you come to that prayer, then you just say it silently, but silently in a way that you must hear your own voice. There is nothing absolutely silent. So for the Jews, you must hear a voice. You must hear a voice. Without voice, there is nothing. So the practice is that the silence is really the high point, the climax, and then after that, the prayer reader repeats the text, and then you actually hear it in a singing sort of reciting. At any rate, the uniqueness of what I did is that when you go to the archives, you usually find that the researchers ask for particular sections, like Ovenu Malkeinu, or particular important prayers. They go to the cantor and they say, well, could you sing me this and that prayer? And then the cantor is very proud, and it's a beautiful number, and he sings it. And I realized that you didn't even know that what they were doing, but I somehow felt that I had to record the whole service from beginning till end, because the continuity. It's like it's like if from an opera you get only the most important arias. I think you are losing the whole point. Because the aria meaningful when
But
you are hearing
that's why
it.
it's like an opera,
So,
yes, because
I'm sorry for the
everything
comparison. I'm really sorry. It's
everything
blasphemy,
is
but
not just his there is no prose, but the
Yeah.
aria is just a highlight.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So I tried to record the whole service,
Yeah.
and that wasn't simple because a service can last. I mean, Yom Kippur lasts for I don't know 10 hours, and a normal Shabbat service, a morning service. Well, it depends which community you go. It can last for 2 hours. It can last for 6 hours. So it's just a lot of work even to get one service. Now, you asked, now all of that is recorded, all of that is accessible.
But my
You can,
question, wait a minute, you hold recorded, but the Hazan sings and the community sings afterwards. How can
Wow.
you record it?
No, yeah.
Ah.
It's a very good question, very good question. First of all, you cannot record in the synagogue.
Yeah,
You can record on weekdays,
yeah.
which I did a lot, but the weekday liturgy is not so interesting. I mean, it is interesting. I was interested in that too, but the interesting things are the holidays, and you cannot record on holidays. So there you are. That's the first problem. So what I did, I went there, I tried to remember, there are sections in this book how I try to memorize the music, and then I went to their homes and I asked them, can you sing me the whole service? But of course it's never the same. Now in the real service, I didn't work with cantors or hazans. I worked with what's called in Hebrew Baltila or Jelek, which I can translate as prayer leaders. So it is the person, everybody knows, so the starting point is for this tradition, if you really go to a traditional place, that every male person knows how to lead the service.
My question again, of course the Hazan is a function. It's not necessarily a cantor. A rabbi can be the Hazan, and everyone from the community can be.
Okay, if you use the word Hazan in that meaning, that yes.
Yeah.
I would say prayer leader rather than Hazan, because Hazan has this atmosphere of professional.
Yeah.
And it really was professional. So
Yeah.
in his community, when they said he's a Hazan,
It means
what
a
they meant
profession.
is that he is really a singer. He really.
Yeah.
But usually they didn't need a Hazan. They needed on Shabbat. They just asked, would you lead the service? And then anybody could go up to lead the service. So it is communal on a different level. It's communal not just on the level that the priest is singing. The prayer leader is not a priest. He doesn't have any religious function. He's only, well, why there is a prayer leader at all? Because everybody in the Jewish, according to the Jewish religion, every person has to pray for himself or herself. So nobody can do it for you. You have to read the text. This is more complicated, and whoever was at the lecture at CEU, I explained that it's a bit more complicated than that. But as a starting point, I can say that everybody has to read the text. Everybody has to say the prayer. So why there is a prayer leader? There are many answers to that. One answer is to have a person who really, really knows and will not make a mistake. So that, because every person tries to pray on his or her own, but you can be old, you can't read the text anymore, or a child who doesn't know it, or a sick person who cannot pronounce it. So the community, that's the name. Shaliach Tzibur means the delegate of the congregation. The congregation delegates a person, and I'm saying it because he really sends him in the front, like with the birds. There is one at the front, and so delegates a person, whom they trust that this person really knows.
My question is the following. No, I understand this, but if you delegate a person, Hazan is a function, prayer lead, etc.
Yeah.
It is delegation. It's not because not everyone knows the service, but because there is a relationship between individual and congregation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So they, play this. Again, game is a blasphemy to say it's game, but they really play out this kind of, he's the leader and we are praying for ourselves. They are praying, everybody's praying for himself, herself, and for the congregation at the same time. And the prayer leader is also praying for himself, herself, and for the congregation. But there is this kind of dialogue between them, and of course I could have give many examples. I don't want to get into it because it's too technical, but there is a traditional way of how to do this. So people know when the prayer leader has more freedom, when they should listen and not, because normally there is noise in the synagogue because everybody is praying and he's also praying. So, but there are moments when they are listening, or at least supposed to listen. It's a very, very complex ritual in terms of what you should do, what you are allowed to do, what you are expected to do, and the rules are not so straightforward. There are some straightforward rules. That, for instance, what I said, that the Shomonians, you have to recite on your own, and you don't hear the voice of the prayer leader. You only hear your own voice, and the general impression is silence. But most of the time the rules are extremely complicated, extremely complex, of who should do what exactly.
And you said that no one learns it, but they don't learn it. They just hear it as a children and they run on the circles in the synagogue. Yeah. But it goes into air and they do it without learning it.
Yes. Well, I have to specify it a little bit. Let's say that what's in this prayer book, they don't learn. You hear it so many times. That's just a generic prayer book for weekday and Shabbat, and some selected prayers for holidays. That probably everybody knows by heart. They are not praying by heart. They are using the prayer book, but they know it by heart.
Yeah,
they know it by heart. They know it by heart, but you are not allowed to read it by heart. If you don't have a prayer book, like in Zinger's Slave, the novel Slave, when he didn't have a prayer book, so you have to remember, then you are of course allowed to say it without a book. Now that really, I can say that the Shabbat repertoire and the weekday, people just pick it up. Shabbat comes every week, so if you start listening to it already when you are inside your mother, then by the age 13 you really know this by heart, melody and variations and everything. Now with the holidays, the complicated holidays, it's a little bit different. The Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, which are the most important holidays, people know, but they don't know all the subtleties. And it's very, very interesting, subtleties of music. The words they know because it's written. Yeah. So they have the book and they read it and they know it. They don't know it, but they read it and they learn it and they understand it. The texts are so linguistically so repetitive that there are some Aramaic poems which are very, very difficult, so maybe not everybody understands, but the text people understand. And I even heard, that's also in the book, by the way, that in very, very poor villages, when they didn't have a synagogue. Mostly in these faraway villages, the Jewish population was one family. family with cousins and the basic
You mean the
family.
Jewish population, the Orthodox Jewish population?
There was no such a thing as Orthodox.
Yes,
There
but there
was
was
no
a
such a
broader
thing.
Jewish population which were still going to the big synagogue or the,
That's in the cities.
Hmm?
That's in the cities.
that's in the
If
city.
you go to the
Not in the
countryside, in
Yeah.
like little villages, they didn't know they were Orthodox.
Yeah,
They were traditional.
yeah,
They didn't know they were Orthodox.
Yeah.
We call them Orthodox, but
Yeah.
they were not Orthodox. They were just doing what they were supposed.
Among those people, there were some who came from Maramoros and from where did these people whom you
Whom I recorded.
where did they come from? They come from villages, not from the city.
Not everybody.
Not
I had
everybody.
people who came from villages, and there were people traveled a lot. The typical.
There was a person who was also in America or different places, or was not only in Hungary, in Germany or France or somewhere.
Not among those whom I
Not
recorded.
among those.
No. The typical itinerary of a person who did not come from a city. Okay? Most of them did not. Originally did not come from cities. They were village Jews, whom I recorded, maybe all of them, I don't
Yeah.
know. Typically they would be brought up in the village. Now the village could have been a rich village or a poor village. The village could have had many Jews, a very strong Jewish population, or just a family. I mean, it really ranged. There was a very, very wide range. They were brought up in the village. They heard these melodies, since they were born, the moment they were born. And the men or the boys, at a certain point, were sent to a yeshiva, which is a kind of higher level. I mean, the lower level.
That was a heder everywhere.
That was a not everywhere.
Not
Not everywhere, because for the cheder, the village, the cheder is the elementary school, the Jewish elementary school, and it means room. Cheder is room,
Yeah.
room in Hebrew. And that is the lower elementary school, which very often they send the girls to cheder, not together with the boys, but they sent more often the teacher came to the girls, to the house. But the teacher, the melamed, the village had to pay the teacher.
Yeah.
However little they earned, they were very, very poor, but something. And many villages could not afford this. And if the village
And they
could
had
not
no
afford,
common melamed. Some villages.
that also happened. That also happened, that the melamed went from places to places, all kinds of formations.
Yeah.
And that usually that was the era when public schooling was, with my informants, they were born at the time when they had to go to public school. So the normal life of a Jewish, traditional Jewish child was that they got up at 4 in the morning, then they went to the cheder, and or Heider as they said it. They went to the Jewish elementary school. They were learning the Hebrew texts, not the prayer melodies, because that they knew already. They just knew it because they just knew. But they were learning Torah, the Bible, the reading properly and translating properly the difficult texts. Because don't forget that these texts are in Hebrew and their native language was Yiddish. So it was another language.
In Hungary, they also spoke Yiddish in the villages.
Of course. Well, it depends where, but in the Great Plains, yes.
Mm-hmm.
All of my informants, native languages. Yes.
So your informants, they all spoke
They all
Yiddish.
spoke Yiddish. They all spoke Yiddish, which sometimes they didn't confess me until a certain point. So after that, they had to be at school at 8. So then they ran home at 7. They had a little breakfast if there was enough to eat at all. And then from 8 to 12 they were at the public school, and after 12 they went back to the cheder, and they learned till 5.
Yeah.
So it wasn't exactly a fun life.
Tell me, Judith, I have another question. You went to America. And after doing all this work, have you also interviewed American Jewish communities there?
No, no.
Although there are Hungarian-speaking communities also,
No.
and Yiddish-speaking, obviously.
You know, that work in Hungary, actually I did it very fast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I started in 57,
57, you were not
no,
born.
I was born, but I started in 76. I started in 76, and I started to record in 77, and I didn't do it alone, so I did it, I mention it in the book, I did it with a classmate of mine, Peter. So we did it together. I mean, I went alone to many places, but the whole project...
That interested me when you went alone, that these old gentlemen were suspect. I want a young woman wants to do with them, yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course, but you know, it's not just that. It's well, of course, I was young. I was blonde. I am, you know, I mean blonder. My hair got darker, but that also made an impression there. But that wasn't the whole story. It's this whole tradition and the prayers and the melodies and the atmosphere. I wanted to write in this book about the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that was the most important thing.
So my question goes back. You were not interested in the atmosphere of the...
Not that I was interested, that's what I found. So all of that was something so important, so mystical, so intimate and so deep for them that it was not something one can talk about. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not just that they didn't want to talk to me. Of course, they were suspicious. It happened, they threw me out from synagogue. In fact, when I gave a lecture about this in an Orthodox community once, Orthodox, very ultra-Orthodox community in Israel, and to women, of course. You know, I can't lecture to men. So only women were in the audience. And they said, "How did you do it? How did they let you do it? You know, we can't believe they let you do it." I didn't know that they shouldn't let me do it. So I was so naive that I didn't even know that it was something extraordinary. But you know, beyond that I was suspect, I was communist, I was studying Schumann, and you know, all of my head was somewhere else. Beyond that, there is also the fact that this whole tradition is something very, very deep, and you cannot really articulate it verbally. You cannot say, "Oh yes, I do this melodic turn because I feel this," and it's totally impossible. It's beyond, I might say, beyond the conscious level. It's on the borderline of mystery and reality and conscious and unconscious, and very soon I understood that I can't
Julie,
ask this kind of
ask you the same question whether you were not interested in Williamsboro, the communities, to go there and find out how they are doing this.
Of course I was very interested. I was interested. Now, there are many reasons why I did not collect I did collect in America, but really sporadically. No, it's not important. It's not such an integral
I mentioned Williamsboro because there's Satmar people there, and you can even speak Hungarian with them.
Yeah, I know, and also in Antwerp and many other places. They are a much closer community. They are really close, and they don't think that the tradition is going to disappear.
Aha,
Now,
that's important.
I found the Jews here in Hungary,
That's
these
important.
communities, in a situation where, you know, they were very, very, very traditional, but they had to go out to the modern world. And I found that was the beauty of it. That's really, really was very, very beautiful. These people came into the synagogue, and I felt it even on myself. You go inside and you are another person. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. The sound and the atmosphere, and it releases something in you that you don't
And they
feel.
realized that this is basically that the last Mohicans.
Well, that's another thing. But this one thing that after they go to the synagogue, the prayer was very, very traditional, and then they go out and they are heads of companies, and then they, people don't even know they go. Businessmen, people don't even know they go to synagogue. Most of these people,
So there is no outside community.
There is no outside community. But what's interesting about it, I mean, many things are interesting about it, but what's interesting that these people are capable of going in and coming out.
Yeah.
They came out from this, and they went to living their normal lives. Of course, they were the same people inside. Yeah. But it didn't, if I may say, it didn't bother them. They did, of course, they had to be very careful what they eat, they had to be very careful. There is a story about the head of a company here who wanted to celebrate and keep all the holidays.
Good.
And
because
which
he
of
owned
course
the company.
That's right. Well, he didn't own in communist times, but he was the director. And he tells in the book that when Yom Kippur came up, I couldn't tell in the company that I'm going to to celebrate Yom Kippur. So he went
business trip.
He went to his workplace, and he said, "Oh, I just got a phone call." Of course, in Yom Kippur, you are not supposed to touch a phone anyway. But I just got a phone call from the from the central office, and I have to run there and have a lot of business to do. And of course, it disappeared in the synagogue and didn't show up in the evening. And when I went to listen to the Yom Kippur services at the Academy of Music, I said I was ill.
So the extremely important point in your research is that this happened in not just a strange, but in a very hostile environment.
The environment wasn't hostile. So much was not aware of the thing.
No, that's worse than hostility. Because total ignorant of what the person
ignorant. So ignorant that
it was like a secret society.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the police knew about all of these synagogues.
Police knows about everything.
I'm sure, but people didn't know. People didn't know.
So like the Freemasons.
Maybe I don't
society.
know. Maybe I don't know.
Secret society.
But that situation actually, I have to say, in one way or another, the community benefited from it, because people, it's not so bad to live in two worlds, and it's not so bad to be able to go into a mystical experience and come out of it. And these people went in and came out, and they went to opera, and they read József Attila. So I mean, we were reciting József Attila after the service. So, and it was so beautiful. Now in Williamsburg, you don't find that. They are completely in their own environment, and that also means that they don't let me come in. They don't need me, and they don't want me.
Yeah.
These people needed me. And they were ready to receive me because they understood my language.
You came from the outside.
I came from the outside, but they also came from the outside in one way or another.
But they went inside.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Judy. I think I liked it very much and was extremely interesting about your talks. And now people have to buy your book. That's the next research.
Thank you very much.
I have already mine.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.